welcome. My name is Marisa, and I'm the host of this room. We have a fascinating discussion now that's going to get us thinking about how we can be more environmentally aware about the impact on the environment we make when we travel. This session's called What's the Cost of Your Dream Vacation? And on our panel today, we have Montonn, Jira, who's the co-founder of Wonderfruit, certified as one of the first environmentally sustainable festivals in Thailand. And we also have Peta, Bassett, communications consultant and author. And we have Saisiri, Xoomsai, managing director of Xoomsai Bay, one of the most eco-conscious and green hotels in Thailand. So I'd like to welcome our three speakers onto the stage, and they're going to take turns giving a presentation each, one after another. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A where we'll open up, anyone can ask questions. So please give a warm welcome to our speakers. So we're going to start with Montonn, so please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Yeah? Can you hear me? All right. Well, thanks for coming out to join us for this talk. I wanted to speak a little bit about Wonderfruit. Just a show of hands, anybody here has been to Wonderfruit? Yes, we have a very small amount. For the rest of you, anybody that has heard of it? You've heard of it, okay. Well, just a short intro. Wonderfruit is a festival. It's a festival that we've organized for 6 years now, and it happens out in Pattaya. Initially, we had ideas of creating an event that had a background in sustainability, and we tried to implement a lot of these ideas into the festival that we set up, looking for a way to bring people together and to create awareness as we are doing here today. But as you probably know, putting on a festival itself isn't very eco-friendly at all. So over the years, we've tried to implement different ideas and concepts into the festival, which I'm going to show you, to move towards a lower carbon footprint while being able to provide all the attendees with a fun time. So I guess the idea that we've sort of put together is to make sure that all of our attendees can see that having this awareness and doing your part can go in hand with having fun, listening to music, and and getting together in large groups of people. So this is our ethos here, and we've spent time sort of finding a way to explain this. So our ethos is to encourage, develop, and innovate creative solutions for sustainable living and bring together a global community to celebrate them. So when people ask what Wonderfruit is, usually we say, hey, it's a celebration of the arts. But the underlying concept also, which we'll get to see here, revolves around a lot of different concepts that we've embedded underneath the experience. So Wonderfruit is held in Pattaya, about an hour and a half out of Bangkok, and on this piece of land where there's a lot of different landscaping, there's lakes, and so we're trying to build a pop-up city that is sustainable, enjoyable, and entertaining. And we've aligned ourselves to the UNDP goals, which doesn't say much, really, because it sort of says, we want to reduce our carbon footprint, we want to make sure there's no poverty, so we're not aligning to every single goal, but specific goals in terms of organizing an event. The event itself is tied upon 6 different pillars: music, art, wellness, adventures, talks and workshops, family, and farm to feasts. And all of our content fits into one of these 6 pillars. And over the years, different experiences have grown out of these 6 pillars, depending on the stage, the venue. In our first year, a lot of this was still sort of experimental, and so the idea to build a stage out of recycled materials that was gathered from the Pattaya area came into play. We had commissioned different artists to work according to these briefs, and so as you can see, a lot of the tin and plastic, a lot of the materials that we had found within the area were used to build a lot of the structures. And over the years, we've sort of moved towards building with upcycled or recycled materials. Our third year, we had built a stage out of reused rice husks. And so this was one of the first rice stages that we actually got inspiration from Jim Thompson, who had built, it wasn't a stage, but it was sort of like an architectural piece, a house that was made out of rice. So we had brought some of the ideas from that as well. On our site, we have a pop-up farm, which a lot of the produce from the farm gets used in our feasts. And so sort of trying to implement this idea where a lot of the attendees that come, they walk through the field in the middle of the site, they see a little farm, and they're like, oh, what is this? So this farm runs throughout the year, even when the festival isn't happening. I believe it was in 2017, so 3 years ago, we tried to implement a cryptocurrency based upon a mangrove tree. And so for each person that purchased a drink at a specific hour, they would automatically donate towards planting a tree and receive cryptocurrency, a coin that was tied to that tree. So this was sort of an experiment that we had put together. Those trees are still there, and so are the coins, but we haven't furthered the development of this just because of the volatility of how the cryptocurrency markets have been running. So we've built this theater as well, very beautiful theater by a designer named Abe Rogers out of the UK. And so in our Eco Pavilion, this is where we share ideas. We have talks, very similar to what BangkokEdge is all about. And all the idea sharing happens in the Eco Pavilion. A year ago, we had an experiment that was less about sustainability, but more about working on human interaction. And we had an experiment called the Waldorf Project, which we tried to engineer empathy. It was supposed to be the world's largest empathy engineering attempt. And so we gathered everybody that was on site and put them all together to measure body temperature and pulse rate of a mass of people. Maybe it's probably around 2,500 people. The idea initially was to gather everybody around quickly, but the actual experiment took longer than expected, so the data was a little skewed. But again, an attempt at working on new ideas in that sort of sense. Before the event every year, we gather a lot of our sponsors and our advisors to come in and help speak about how we are able to extend and create more of this impact. How do we raise awareness? How do we work towards a cleaner system within the Wonder Food organization itself? And so this is the gathering we have usually before gates open. It happens on the Thursday before the festival starts. Another example of what we do in terms of reusing our materials, the solar stage has been with us for 4 years now. And so the structure itself is boltless. It's made out of these wooden pieces that sort of fit together like Lego. And these pieces are restructured every year and reused, being able to be configured into multiple types of designs. And so having this sort of reincarnate, it's become an iconic stage for us because it only is active usually during the sunrise and sunset. And two, the way that it looks and the way that people are able to climb and interact with it is quite important. Last year, slowly we've been looking for ways to eliminate the plastic cup from our festival. Early on, we were using biodegradable materials, but that still created a lot of waste. 2 years ago, we put out our own cup that was optional to buy, and that slowly started moving people towards less waste. But this last edition in 2019, we eliminated all cups completely, and we asked all of our attendees to either bring their own cup or buy one from us. And with that, we saw a huge decline, obviously, in all the waste that was created on site, because 95% of the waste was probably based on plastic cups. We saw an increase in people drinking beer, because those were coming straight out of the cans, and so there was an increase in the trash created there. But the cups alone made quite a big impact, and I think this is something that we're going to continue to push forward. I think this year what we're looking at is making sure people bring their own cutlery and plates. Now, obviously, all this stuff becomes almost a hassle for a festival attendee, but again, slowly, I think the reception from this no cup policy last year took us by surprise in terms of people complaining. We would have expected a lot more. So we're also working on ways of powering the festival naturally or alternately, because we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of generators, and there's a lot of energy that's used to power a lot of our musical stages. So this is stuff that we're working on for the future, as well as right now, not the best option, but still an option to offset carbon post-event, and finding ways of doing this. Obviously, like Marissa said earlier on, certified sustainable festival, a lot of it comes from this. So are we zero emissions? No. But we're working towards being lowest emissions possible. Now every year, like I said, we measure a lot of the trash that comes out of Wonder Fruit, and we try to be we are as transparent as possible about what gets recycled, what gets upcycled, what gets reused, what goes to landfill. And so this last year, our landfill percentage of the trash that was created was around 3.7%. And so the goal is to get to zero landfill. But again, it's a slow process for us. And creating the awareness with our attendees has always been a slow process. If we were to start out as a festival of just creating awareness, I think a lot of people, we would have a lot less attendees. So bringing them in, luring them in with entertainment and content, and then slowly feeding them the ethos that we have is quite key. And we view it as problem solving on a large scale, where we can bring like-minded people together to celebrate and slowly instill in them this ethos that we hold, and find ways of them taking it back home post-event and being able to reuse these ideas in their daily lives. And that's it. So just to wrap up, the reason that I think this sort of makes sense for the tourism aspect is the fact that Wonder Fruit has an attendee base of expats and foreigners that fly in that exceeds most festivals. We have about 60% of our audience coming in from abroad. So it's become a destination festival, and it's quite important for us to make sure that the tourism that it's brought to Pattaya isn't destructive in that sort of sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to hand it over to Peta. And please remember your questions for the end.
Okay, here we go. Hello, hi. Lovely to be here. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle this paper, microphone, clicker, but I'll try. I'll juggle. I'll do something. Lovely to be on this panel, especially with Kun Goya and Kun Montonn. And so today, yes, I've actually taken this quite literally. What's the cost of your next dream vacation? And what's the cost of mine? And I thought, okay, let's examine this. Let's see if this works too. And I thought, well, how can we possibly know? Because there's so many factors, like which destination we're going to go to, it's pre-planning, it's during the trip, and it's post-planning. How can we possibly break it down? So today, though, I've entitled this talk, What Counts? because I'll talk about what we are counting, what we don't count, and what we should count. So it's about the cost, but I'm taking a little bit of a tangent on that. I really did try to answer this question. I found this. This is the Global Sustainable Tourism Dashboard, and it's from 2016, but that's static. So it can give averages, it can tell you about carbon dioxide emissions per room, it can talk about gender equity down on the bottom right-hand side in the industry, it can talk about natural resources, but I actually tracked it. It was put together by, and this is the best example, it was put together by an industry and educational consortium, so a number of different people around the world, and I contacted the lead author. And I asked him, is there anything that's interactive that we can put in our own numbers, our own destinations, where we're going to stay, like a 5-star or a 3-star hotel, and the period of time? Can we start calculating this? Because we can calculate air miles, we can calculate other things, why can't we calculate this? He wrote back within the hour, 39 minutes actually, and said, no, but good idea. So he may take that, you guys could run with that, but as such, there's none right now. But what we can measure, we measure dollars and cents. We measure dollars to our pockets, how much the travel costs, and also how much we might be saving. Tourism bureaus love to measure arrivals. 39 million last year to Thailand alone. However, now surely down and hit by coronavirus. Apparently today I saw an alert saying that there are 300 empty tour buses that have been parked for a week down in Phuket. So definitely, and I should say also thank you everybody for braving the virus and coming out today, as well as the air pollution. And then there are other industry figures, stats that are measured all the time, and GMs, hotel GMs are constantly reviewing their scorecards and updating their RevPAR. Is it revenue, average daily revenue per room? So there's lots of different things that are measured. But what don't we measure? Oh, sorry, and this too. There's lots of things in our lives that are measured. We know that, what a gin and tonic is going to do to our waistline versus a quarter pounder, or how much exercise we'll expend being a pallbearer versus half an hour of exercise doing some yoga. So we can quantify so many things. We've got Google tracking our every movement and telling us with their insights at the end of the month how far we've traveled, how far we haven't potentially, and we've got Netflix watching everything we watch to figure out what we might want to watch so they can send us something to binge watch. So metrics everywhere, but why don't we have metrics to help us measure the environment and communities? The environment, the impact on the environment when you have new infrastructure projects going in to cater for tourism. The impact on the environment when you might have a hotel, for example, let's think in the Maldives. A hotel in the Maldives, not one specifically, but one that might have their staff get up before dawn and take food waste out into the ocean and dump it in the ocean. What's the impact on that marine food chain? Are we measuring? What are we looking at? And what about communities? What's the impact on communities of tourism and of travel? Are we looking at jobs created or jobs lost? What about cultures enriched or not? People overworked perhaps, or people priced out of their communities? So all of these things, this growth at all costs mindset that we have in a lot of industries, but particularly tourism, needs to change. We actually do need other indicators and alternative measures that can help us take into account the holistic impact of tourism that is there. So pretty just dull, grey figures, slides that I've shown you so far, but this is a talk about tourism. So I want to take you now to the Pacific. This is a place called Rabaul, and it's in the province of East New Britain in Papua New Guinea. And it was called the Jewel of the South Pacific. And this is pre-94 in the inset, and then that is post-94 after the volcano Matapi and some others had blown up. So it's a pretty crazy place to have a town. And my childhood home was in the top left-hand side. Not many people died from this eruption. It was only traffic accidents, thankfully, on the way out. But all this to say, there's a pretty picture for you. The reason I'm pointing out is there's something else that has survived. The town hasn't survived. The town had to move. But something called shell money does survive and lives on today. So shell money it's fascinating because it's used as a common currency. It's made from Nasaride mud snail shells that are collected from the shallow waters around the peninsula, as well as on the foreshores when the tides go out. And the population is about, it's under 200,000 on this peninsula. And so the Tolai people, the indigenous people, use these shells, then they string them into big long strings. They use them as an everyday currency. Kids might get some for pocket money and pay for an ice cream down at the local mum and pup store. Parents use these to pay for school fees. And people use them in people use them in ceremonial life as well, whether it's for initiations or weddings, for bride price, funerals, or compensation. So it's still very much alive and well, but it's not sustainable. They're running out of these shells. It's a currency that isn't going to live longer, or much longer. It's also funny to be talking about this in an age when we're trying to get mangrove currencies and other things working. So it survived the test of time, but the population is growing. It's not going to survive. So taking you on a journey for an old form of currency that isn't sustainable to now I'd like to talk about a tool, big leap, a tool that measures economic activity and doesn't consider sustainability. Okay? GDP, gross domestic product. I think we all know this. We've heard about it. It's been in usage for I think almost 80 years since it was widely adopted in the late 40s. We know what it is, but we need to know what it's not. Okay, it is a measure of economic activity, but it's not a measure of economic or social well-being. So you can read the business pages and you can see frequent figures in GDP terms, or you can see industry reports, but where are the economic indicators? Where are the economic indicators are there, but where's the social and environmental indicators that are being applied as well? We need alternatives. Okay, I'm not suggesting we go back to shell money, that is dying out, but this too, we need something that's more multi-dimensional than a one-dimensional tool like GDP. So you might be familiar with G&H. I'm just throwing a couple more acronyms at you. G&H, or Gross National Happiness. I think when it first came out in 1972, or it was coined, apparently the former king of Bhutan coined it in conversation with a journalist from the Financial Times. And he was in an interview in the Bombay airport, Bombay at that time as it was called, and he used this term and he said that gross national happiness is more important than gross national product. I think a lot of people would have thought it was just too esoteric. But they've actually looked at measuring it. They've been measuring it. They do a 5-year survey in Bhutan, and in 2015, here are some results for you. The results are interesting. Men are happier than women. People in urban areas are happier than the rural. And overall, everybody is 1.7% happier. But these are figures, at least it's an indicator. And the other thing that was interesting, people care less about the environment, so that's a bit worrying if you track that. But they're tracking it. Now, I'm going to take you to one last acronym, okay? Something called LSF. Before I do that, though, I'm from Australia, and apparently in Australia we have a term at the moment called Kiwi envy. Yes, and maybe it's not just because of their leader, who has acted with such grace, dignity, and humanity, especially with the Christchurch massacre that happened last year. No, they've done something else. They've introduced the LSF, okay, Living Standards Factor Dashboard. Okay. So what this set's about to do, it's actually a framework that sits under its Treasury Department, which is pretty radical. It's not just looking at the financial indicators, it's looking at something more dimensional as well. It's looking at the indicators around the well-being of its people now. So looking at the intergenerational well-being and how it can support that. Additionally, it's looking at the future, and this logo in the right-hand side, I believe, stands for the 4 different areas of capital that they're looking at. They're looking at financial capital, they're looking at human capital, social capital, as well as natural capital. So we just don't need GDP anymore alone, we need to look beyond that. Okay. The OECD in reference also, I should quote them too, about what New Zealand has done It's not perfect. It's not got every indicator there that they need, but they are saying, the OECD in comment to it said, the challenge now faced by governments is how to embed well-being evidence more systematically throughout policy decision making in budgets, cabinet committees, and other routine processes. So to make it procedural, to make it, I've got 5 minutes left. Okay, I'm just getting fired up. Okay, anyway, New Zealand did this, and that's great. And we look at a lot of businesses, and you, as well you said, Montonn, you talk about, you reference the Sustainable Development Goals, but just one thing I'd like to say to this is, they're a goal. But when Goal Setting 101, you set something that can be measured, and they can't measure them. That's a problem. So what you really need is you need other indicators that you develop a baseline for, and you track consistently. This is not the final slide, but I'll get to it. This is a climate change process in England. Yes, we still want to go on holiday. The best we can do is look at our own supply chains and make sure we are choosing to go with suppliers that are certified, and also make sure and ask questions, email them and ask them that they are actually getting their suppliers and pushing it up their supply chain to get certified as well. But I really want to get to this. We need to rethink tourism, okay? We need to rethink what it is and what it's all about to be a tourist, because the status quo can't continue, and I'd like to talk about maybe we don't have to measure everything, okay? Maybe it's about building values. Maybe it's about rethinking our relationships, and with tourists especially. What about relationships like human connections and what that means for the well-being? So Welcome Copenhagen is the tourism bureau for the capital of Denmark. And what they've done is they've come out with a manifesto called The End of Tourism as We Know It. So they're reframing what a tourist is. They're looking at tourists, instead of tourists, they're looking at them as temporary locals. And when you redefine that, you change the relationship. You bring everybody to the table and you change what's possible. You change the products you design, you change the services you give. And localhood helps with messaging, because we're all human. We all want the same thing. We all want clean air right now. It's not just cities like Delhi and Chiang Mai and other cities that have bad air. Sydney has had the worst, I think 81 days. The last 81 days have been the worst in 10 years. So there's nowhere is unaffected at the moment. Global warming has been a distant issue for some. It's been distant in time and space, but it's becoming very now and very local. Local warming. When you're local, you care and you act. And then finally, I've whipped through these last 2 slides, but I really want to get to this. This is a piece by Tsai Guo-chang, and I hope I've pronounced his name correctly, a Chinese artist that was done for the Queensland Art Gallery in Brisbane. And I saw it last December at an exhibition aptly titled Water. And it was done in 2013. He created, inspired by North Stradbroke Island, or Minjerribah, where the traditional owners are the Quandamooka people. And he was inspired by the natural beauty there. And when he created this piece, it was a piece of hope, he thought, everybody sharing at the same waterhole. However, when I saw it last year, it was not one of hope. I thought it was a message of the dire situation we're in, where predator and prey are drinking from the same waterhole. We're all in this together. And in this, when you were interacting with the piece, it was predator, prey, and people. We were all together. So just to say that we can't know the true cost of your next vacation, but what we can simply do is limit the cost to the planet and the communities that we are interacting with. And we need to value our destinations that we attend or we go to like we value our home communities. When we go elsewhere, think of ourselves as local too, and make every day count everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peta. Now we're going to hand it over to Kun Saisiri.
Hello. Now you're making me nervous telling everyone else about my luxury hotel, if I'm going to be eco enough. Okay, so my name is Goya, and I'm a managing director of the Xoomsai Bay. I'm just going to tell you a brief descriptions about my hotel. The Xoomsai Bay is a eco-friendly luxury resort situated in Koh Samui. We have 83 rooms and roughly 250 staff. Our land consists of 100 rides altogether. The hotel itself has been established for over 32 years, but our green project or our green policy did not start till year 2002, and that is actually 18 years ago. The reason we, oops, sorry, it's wrong directions. Okay, the reason we started a green project is because when I first handed to manage the resort, I just came to realize and discover that there's so much resources uses to, in one day, used to run. I mean, we use so much resources to run a hotel, on the daily basis. And of course, we create some kind of impact to environment just to provide our guests with good experience and comfort. For example, just to start off, to build a hotel, you have to take over green space or natural area. The amount of energy and water consumptions by guests, by staff, and all this electrical equipments in the hotel, such as swimming pool, golf carts, air conditions, kitchens, appliance, but one of the major issues that we found and was very concerning was the amount of trash that comes out from the hotel. So, it's almost like if you see it every day, you feel like it's almost unfair to nature, that you consume so much resources just to create some kind of pleasure for human being. It's unfair. So me and my husband, we get together and we thought, how can we compromise between nature and our business? How can we not overly consume and not destroy too much? And how can we ultimately minimize the impact that our business have on environment? So at the time at the time we thought about what we can do. So we came up with this green practices in the hotel that we enforce to upon our staff, basically. But 18 years ago, the word global warming is not even as popular as it is now. So we had quite a challenging task to explain to our staff why we have to do what we do. Then it was quite difficult. So we take about 2 years to integrate Xoomsai Bay to become a more eco-friendly hotel. I said more eco-friendly hotel because I don't think we can be 100% eco. No matter what, if you run a business, you create some kind of impact to the environment. But I can say that we are more eco-friendly now than we were 20 years ago. So, okay, today I'm just going to tell you about our practices, just some of them. Just going to go through it really quickly. The first one is what we give priority the most is nature conservation. As you can see on the left slide, this is the aerial shots of Xoomsai Bay. So you can see that the whole resort consists of green space more than buildings. I'm kind of lucky because my father-in-law was also a nature lover. So when he first built the resort, he kept a lot of big trees and green space. So it wasn't hard for us to revive these indigenous trees and floral around the hotel. We do not use any more decorative plants in our landscape. We're actually hoping for more of the authentic, natural, indigenous forest around the hotel ground. So this is, we had plenties of different kinds of trees. We also give it a very serious about protecting our wildlife in the hotel, including insects, reptiles, mammals. One of our highlights is slow loris. They often now been spotted by our staff at night. They roam around the hotel free and wild. We over the past 20 years, because we have more trees now, we spotted over 60 kinds of birds in the properties, and we are hoping to have more in the future. So just to let you know how serious we are, I mean, not only in the hotel, we also do not promote tours or organizations or business that promote animal captivities or put animals in labor. So if, let's say, if you're a guest at my hotel and you want to go to that kind of places, our staff at front office will not help you or assist you in any way to make bookings or reservations to go to that place or even call you a taxi. So you have to be on your own, and you got to find your way there. Also, we take extreme measure with our staff as well. If our staff get caught bullying, hunting, hurting animals or wildlife around the hotel, cutting trees without permissions, they will be immediately terminated by the management. So it's almost like a very, very serious crime at Xoomsai to protect wildlife and nature. Second is the major issues that I was talking about is waste. I think Jay also had that issues as well. We have so much waste in the hotel, like plenty, all kinds, not just plastic. So what we do is the first, when we wanted to, we found that the most effective way to manage waste is to reduce them. So we categorize them at the moment is 6 types, not including organic waste. So after you categorize them, then you go through each of the types and see which one you can eliminate completely, which one you can reduce, reuse, recycles. The one that you can't really do anything about is the trash that have to go to Tesaban, and then get disposed of. And those is kind of waste that you want to reduce the most. So at Xoomsai now, the disposal waste is the smallest part now in Xoomsai. The least part of waste at Xoomsai. This is just to show you just some samples. The second pictures is our minibar. We do not have any plastic bottles in our minibars. A lot of people think, well, plastic bottle can be recycled, but it is still a non-biodegradable waste, and when it's end of its lifetime, it have to go back to the earth anyway. So the best way is to not have it at all. Our plastic straw is replaced by lemongrass stalk. You can do that too, Jay, if you want. It's pretty cool. It tastes better too, and it smells better. This is just some pictures showing this is how our supplier deliver our fresh produce to Xoomsai. We had to recycle the packaging. Our suppliers know that when they deliver product to Xoomsai, they cannot use single-use container or plastic. So a lot of time we had to work very closely with our suppliers in order for them to recycle the packagings that for the product that they deliver every day. Just some example. The one with the candlelit, those are actually a reused vegetable oil from the kitchen. The vegetable oils are clean and then used back as a candlelit, and we put them in a dining table at night in the restaurants. Also, a lot of fabrics recycled within the hotels. The curtain, we turn them into seat cover. Old curtain, we turn them into seat cover for golf carts. Recycle old wood furnitures, we turn them into hanging lamp. And this is another kind of waste. It's called organic waste. It's the food waste. It's also a big problem because we did have a lot of food waste because we can't control how much the guests eat or not eat. A lot of people sometimes had a lot of leftover, So our food waste and our waste from the garden, which is leaf twigs, got transferred into our organic garden compound, where they get turned into fertilizers and then used at our garden. This fertilizer are used for our herbs and vegetables, which also later be delivered to the kitchens to service the guests. We never use foam in the property for a longest time, but even backdrops we use, it has to be purely natural materials. Anything that we cannot use but not good enough for our guests, we actually share them to local organization and foundation on the island. Nowadays, it's actually easier to be eco-friendly because you got more products, you got more people that are coming out with new things, So at the moment, Xoomsai still, we still admit that we have non-biodegradable waste, but we are gradually changing them, replacing them more and more every day. Energy and energy and water management is very limited what we can do, because a lot of time water and energy consumptions depends a lot on human behavior. So the more you use, the more you consume. So, but however, we have other equipments that help us today. For example, LED light bulbs and things like that. Oh my God, I have 5 minutes too. Okay, so this is the example of one energy reduction system we put in. Instead of using individual boiler, to heat up the hot water, we use heat from air compressor to heat the water instead. So that actually is pretty cool. It actually helped us reduce electricity usage down to like 30 to 40%. With water system, of course, we recycle them. It goes back to the garden, or the used water, it got treated. One of the systems that's so effective as well that we use at the staff dorm is that all the water from flushing the toilet is going to the tank and get treated, and then it gets sent back to the toilet tank. So basically, the flushing systems, water from flushing system to the staff dorm, we don't use any fresh water at all, so it's always recycled. Yeah, air noise pollution is not a big deal at all in Samui, not like in Bangkok. We don't have that much problems. What we put it in there because we do not want to provide a motorized water sport to our guests because like jet ski make noises, annoying ones, and they polluted the sea. So in our bay, we only provide non-motorized sports. We do our own cleaning agent for the longest time. For over 10 years, we use the food waste from the kitchens, anything acidity like lime, lemon, kaffir limes. We fermented them and turned them into a cleaning agent. Our housekeeping actually used them for a guest room and public area. Also, we created our own citronella oil solutions, helping, this is just like scented with the use in spa and in public toilet around the hotel. Okay, a lot of hotels do mosquito fogging, but we don't do fogging at all because it's quite toxic and it kills other insects besides mosquitoes. So we promote our guests to use a repellent instead, but it's an organic repellent. Guests can buy that one bottle, and when they run out, they can go to our staff and refill it anytime they want for free. So the most important thing is in the hotel, you have to constantly create awareness among staff, especially guests, and then communities, and also our suppliers. Our new staff, when they come in, the first thing they go through is orientation. They have to know about our green policies and our green practices. All staff will get refreshed about our green policy like every 1 or 2 times a year. And this is just an example we just did lately. This is a basic arboriculture training, that's what they call it, is to teach staff how to properly trim big trees. This is actually done for gardening departments because we want them to understand that cutting and trimming trees are not the same. So a lot of time when you see in Bangkok when they trim the trees, it's almost like they just cut it, so that's not trimming, that's cutting. And to know how to properly trim the trees is safe for the staff, safe for the guests, and safe for the tree as well. And of course, we join local communities in doing green activities. We always want to encourage our guests to have a better choice in terms of products. We have at gift shops to have more eco-friendly products to buy. And this is what we're trying to do right now is to support the suppliers who come out with more organic or more eco-friendly products. So here is one of the samples. We now support local organic rice farmer in the south. So if you come to Xoomsai, you only get organic rice. So that's it. For the past 18 years, we have a lot of visitors come to visit us at the hotel and learn from us. And sometimes, a lot of time, we learn also from them. And we hope that we can actually do more in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that really interesting conversation from the three of you. And we'd like to open it up to questions and answers right now. Would anyone like to ask a question to any three of the panelists?
Yeah, I might ask you a question. Can I ask Goya a question to start off? Yeah. So have you seen, what kind of impact have you seen on your staff in their own communities? Have you seen them take their education from the hotel home and practice?
Oh yeah, I can give you an example. Like my housekeeping manager, she haven't used any single-use plastic for like 12 years since we started the programs. So yeah, I think we had more easier 15, 16 years ago because we don't have much turnover of staff. So when you train them or you make them understand about nature or environment, they kind of stick with you. But nowadays people don't work for so long, so you got so much of that turnover. So new staff, I don't think there are much impact except they stayed with us for more like 1 or 2 years. Then they get it, they start getting it. Why we have to, because they all have to know how to separate trash in the hotel. We separate like 7 kind of trash in the hotel, so they have to know what is plastic, what is aluminums, all that. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions? Anyone?
At Wonderfruit, it's a festival that lasts for a few days, a week maybe. After that, what happens to the space?
So the festival starts on Thursday and runs till Monday. We're there maybe 8 weeks before doing the main build, but we're there maybe 6 months before already prepping the land. Once the festival is done, I say maybe about 60% of the structures that we use on land, they get broken down and stored on the land. Then maybe 10% of the structures stay as they are. Yeah, so like this last year, 2018, we moved about 1 kilometer from our old site onto the new land. A lot of the stuff that we build, say our Theater of Feast, remains there. So that's a permanent structure, and each year we add permanent structures. So in terms of the structures that we get to, most of them will stay there or they get repurposed. So we had a year where we had an art car, and so we built a structure on top of a flatbed truck. That structure the next year got moved down and became a venue for a sponsor, and this last year it became what we call the chef's kitchen. So a lot of the structures get reused, but aside from that, the land during the year isn't being used for anything, except for the farm, the little farm area, which actually helps feed the community that lives or works on the land.
Okay, thank you. So
Yeah.
there's somebody looking after the land. You have
There's
to hire
somebody looking after the land, yes.
How many people? What does it take?
It's probably like 15 people that look after the land.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
but it's also the land is part of an area which is mainly golf courses. And so Pete, who's my co-founder as well, his family owns the land and owns all the golf courses around. So the same teams that look after the golf courses can come and help look after the plot that we use for the festival.
That's handy. Thank you.
Yeah. This last year we had about 20,000 people. About 50 to 60% will stay on site, meaning so we provide general camping and we provide boutique camping. There's RV campings as well. And so maybe about 40 to 50% will drive in or stay nearby. There's a small amount of people that come for just a day or two.
Any more questions? If not, let's give a big round of applause to our 3 panelists.
Thank you very much.